Hello, everybody. Drasco here from 10knorm.com, where my main focus is to help guide heart-centered entrepreneurs under 10K months to transcend all of the blind spots that are keeping them from thinking, feeling, acting, and authentically marketing so they can normalize their own versions of 10K months. And on today's episode, we have another Real Talk segment where I bring in a heart-centered entrepreneur who's on their way to their own 10K norm, and we have some real talk. And basically that real talk is about what's currently their biggest challenge towards their 10K norm. And in that conversation, we explore who they are, why they do what they do. And then live on the call, I get to help them get out of their own way for a challenge that they're currently experiencing towards their 10K norm. And on today's show, we have the lovely Shunte Gamble here with us. And I'm so excited because she was kind enough to invite me on her show. And I'm so happy that she came on here. And she's got a very cool background, even just from the little bit that I know of her. She's an award-winning entrepreneur, a best-selling author, a motivational speaker. And if that wasn't enough, she also runs her own radio show. And she is one of the top industry professionals that people search for when it comes to just helping them and organizations, like equip them with the essential tools to achieve new levels in their professional careers, break barriers, blocking their personal goals, which is definitely something that we dive into here at 10K Norm, and then create the action plans that promote their continuous growth, right? Not just in that moment. So without further ado, welcome, Shunte. How are you?
I am doing well. I always start with a hey, y'all. So I'm not going to shy away from that just because we're on this show today.
Listen, whatever thing you have that is like your like signature thing, by all means, bring it right into the show. So yes, listen, the floor is yours. However you would like to add to that introduction. So go right ahead.
And I want to say thank you for inviting me on your show again. When we were matched up, I was like, yes, this is for me, because you said something earlier. I do believe in the same thing. Coaches need coaches too. That we all need someone to help us and get us either realigned with our purpose or help us go, move forward. Because I don't care how long you've been in business or doing what you do, you still need that support and redirection from time to time.
100%. And I'm always I always use the analogy of like the mirror, right? Like the world and other people in it are always mirrors to what we need. And that is, in my kind of understanding and in my practice and in my experience, that is the biggest value of having a coach, or at least like a mentor or somebody to help you out, right? Because our blind spots are blind, right? So we need that mirror, right? Just like if you're driving a car, to see those blind spots. So I'm super excited to have you here to explore that. And before we get into that, because you know the value of coaching, you coach yourself. I'd love to know more about you and what you do for people and how you got into it.
Well, I got into it through a progression of transformations in business. I think we lend more to personal transformations, and we don't really give our business the opportunity to transform us. So when I got started, it was way back in 2009. I used to sell handmade jewelry. So I would stay up all night making this jewelry, going to different markets, selling it, promoting it, and, gaining, followers that way, until one day I paid about $1,000 for a table. And I was like, you know what? Hold on now. I don't have $1,000 worth of product sitting on $1,000 table. And that was a light bulb for me. And it wasn't because I couldn't produce $1,000 worth of product. It just, I hadn't at that point. And I thought to myself, if I'm going to give you $1,000, why don't someone else give me $1,000? And that's where I went into producing events. And that business became Total Beauty Ladies Events. No one could ever pronounce it. It was always Total Events Beauties, Total Beauties. And I would always be just redirecting people. No, it's Total Beauty Ladies Events. And then nobody understood what we did. And that boggled me. And at that time, I was still trying to have my booth right? My jewelry. And I said, well, I'll get someone to man it. Why not my mom? Shout out to my mom. She's going to get me for this. And I realized that I could not run an event company with other vendors, because now other vendors are participating in this event. And not only are they paying me, but I was taking that money and giving back to breast cancer awareness. So we spent about 4 years giving back. We gave over $10,000 to breast cancer awareness, providing free mammograms for hundreds of women through these events. But I noticed that my mom was doing more talking than selling. So that was an issue. And no one could really pin down the purpose of the business. So with that, that pit of frustration, like, well, you know what? I want people to understand what I'm doing. I want this, what we're doing and the purpose to connect. It just led me into the more of the forefront, because then you have people that want to pull you aside and ask you more about it. So it moved me into another arena, which was more of public speaking and spotlighting other entrepreneurs. And then at that point, y'all, long story short, had a divorce. It all came crumbling down. At this point, business is doing good, being awarded and recognized by, industry peers. They say, I see you. And we know that, whenever you put a lot of energy and effort into something, at the end of the day, you want other people to recognize that. You want to be seen. And it's not for, and I don't think that's selfish either. It's just that there is always a reward when you do the work, or should be, whatever that reward is. So, when I got back into it, after my divorce, I had to figure out, well, who am I now? Divorce is gone, divorce is final, marriage is over, kids are, all over the place, businesses have crumbled and fallen apart. So sometimes you have to get back to you and what is your purpose? What is your calling? And at that point, that's when people start asking me to come and speak at their events. So then it moved me into public speaking for other people. So it's not been like a straight line. And I think most people feel that way when you get into business. You're going to go from A just to B, but you may go to A to B to C to D to Z and back to A again. And it's all about the growth along the journey.
110%. I think, when we watch these movies, right, there's always like a beginning, middle, and an end. And it's like, even if it's a movie about an entrepreneur, like it's always stringed into a story, because that story is, 2 hours long. It has a start and has a finish. So it's kind of nicely packaged. But real life is so much more messy, so much more fumbling around and going from one thing to another. And, one of the things that has become quite common the more episodes I do of this show and the people that come on is like, really, it's harder to find a story of somebody going straight from like A to Z and right away they know, like, this is my purpose, is what I was born to do. That is actually the anomaly. That's almost the outlier. It is much more common that out of disaster, people's, truth, people's purpose actually arises. And it's certainly been true in my life, in my previous businesses, my disasters, moving into this one. Clearly, it's something that's been in yours. And I think it's more common than not. And I think for anybody that's in that situation of like, oh my God, like, how can I not have my, shit together? And well, why can't I like make all this work? Look at all these other people. It's like, you're probably in the thick of exactly what you need to be doing and are in the process of taking the same, like your version of the same road that somebody else went on. So, I mean, I see you nodding your head, in agreement. So I would like to know that, as you agree, what was it that got you through all of that? Because I know what you said, perseverance was like a core part of your story.
I will have to tell you, at my lowest point is when the brightest light was shown, and here I am, just like all of these accomplishments. And, I was the one with that checklist. By 30, I'm going to do this. I'm going to have that. And, you know, honestly, I did. I'll be very honest. So that's why y'all be flexible with that checklist. I'm just going to insert that there. But by 30, I said, I'm going to write, you know, publish my first book. I'm going to buy my first home. I'm going to get married. I'm going to have my own business. And I did. Check, 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 check. Right. And then there was some unexpected, like, you know, being recognized and, you know, being interviewed. Those were things that, you know, back then, it wasn't that common to be interviewed by somebody, to be on a radio station for free. You know, that wasn't like in our podcast era now. Right now, I can just reach out and be like, hey, you want to talk? And like, sure. But back then, you know, it was a lot of either you knew someone or you were very popular or you had the money. It was one of those three categories. So for, you know, to be able to be recognized was a big accomplishment unexpectedly. And then here I am with everything that I've worked for. And y'all, I'll be honest, I got into a tiff and some of those awards went in the trash because I couldn't face them. And that is the thing. People think success is all giggles and smiles. And sometimes it is more tears than it is joy because you put everything you have into it. And I could not walk by those awards because I'm like, I had imposter syndrome to the T. I was like, who is this person? I'm not her anymore. I don't have this business. But through that pain, birthed a brand new organization called Women Empowering Change. Not one person has mispronounced it. And guess what? I no longer get asked, well, what do you do? Because it's very clear. We're Women Empowering Change. Now, I may be asked a follow-up question like, well, in what ways do you empower and change? But no one has to guess. And for me, that was the reward. It was no longer all of the other things like the money and the people and the following. It was being clearly understood in the purpose of my business and my life. That was the true reward for me. So I think we have to redefine, you know, our pinnacles and our valleys. We've given them names that don't belong. Right? Sometimes you may be in your lowest low and you're calling it failure, but it's redirection. You're calling it failure, but it's lessons to be learned. It's strength to be gained. It's wisdom to be attained. So we're calling some of our pits the wrong names because if we're very honest, some of us need a pit because we're moving 30, 100 miles an hour. And we're not still long enough to say, okay, you know what? The season has shifted. I need you to do this. The assignment, because your purpose will always remain the same. My purpose is to teach. No matter where I go, that's what I'm going to do. Now, the ways in which I teach may shift. At one point, it was teaching kindness from behind a vendor booth. It was giving a smile and teaching people that you don't have to have your walls up. You can let them down for a stranger and buy a piece of jewelry and look cute. Now I can teach through the radio. I can teach through podcasts. I can teach at events. So the purpose doesn't change, but the assignment changes. But we have to be able to recognize when the assignments change and call them the right things.
I mean, I don't like there's like 10 different directions we can go with that because there's like so many, you know, speaking of teaching, I think there's so many good nuggets in there. I agree across the board and I love everything that you so nicely put together because I think the key part of like really impactful teachers, like the ones you really remember, whether they're from school, from your neighborhood, from like your grandma to like whoever is in your vicinity to teach you, I think it ultimately comes down from like real world experience, right? If anybody here like listens to Abraham Hicks, right, she talks about like words don't teach, experiences do, right? And it's and in that instance, it's like our lived experience that teaches. But I think for the words to actually land, you have to have that lived experience. That's what makes you, in my opinion, a good coach. You know, as I always say, like my capacity to see, you know, your blind spots is only equal to my capacity to explore my own and the willingness for me to explore my own. So, you know, I love that you bring your realness into it, because I think it's such a much needed voice and a much needed perspective in this whole space. And while there's so many things that I want to get into here, I do want to segue into, you've gone down this road of transitioning between a whole bunch of different things. You've seen success in so many different areas. And now you're in this new chapter of your journey, and you're finding that you have some struggles on your own way towards your own 10K norm. So I would like to explore that. And from what you know, because you clearly know a lot, what do you think is your biggest struggle towards that 10K norm?
It's really just re-engagement. When I went through my divorce, I took a long break. And the best way to be successful is to be a healed business person. There are a lot of broken people in different types of relationships, whether it's platonic or romantic or business. But when you can do business from a healed heart, you do better business, and you're a better servant leader in your community, or with your clients. You can serve them better. Like you say, it's experience, it's empathy, it's understanding. I never want to tell somebody, oh, I understand how you feel, and I absolutely don't. So for me, it's re-engagement, becoming reconnected with the audience that is still there. Some people that are still there. And then, but the biggest thing is allowing them the opportunity to relearn me all over again. Because then when I show back up, it's like, hey, I'm not Total Beauty Ladies events. We're not doing events, every other month. And, hey, I need you to download this radio app. Or, you like radio. When did you get into radio? You have a radio station? So, they have to I have to reintroduce myself. And then they have to relearn, what services can I provide?
Got it. So it's kind of like I have an established audience, but they know me for a different thing. And now I want them to know me for this current thing that I do. Would that be accurate?
That would be.
Okay. So what comes out for me when you shared that is, when I hear you speak, when, I've been on your show, it's like when it comes to being present and like, talking, like you said, teaching and just sharing your message, I don't think anybody would be like, hey, you know what I think your problem is? Like you're probably just like, afraid of being out there, right? Like it's I would say it's the opposite. I feel like you actually love being in this stage where you do get to amplify your message. So given that, like, that's like a natural superpower for you, you already have a audience in front of you. If one were to look from the outside, they're kind of like, well, isn't it just a matter of like telling people like, this is what I do now, and whoever's interested, join my, join this direction?
It is, and it is not. Because, in the beginning, it took a lot of time to, and I would have to say, for a lack of better word, convince people that this is the better, I'm the better way. I'm the way to go. You should buy this ticket. You should come. This is why. And so when you come back out and, okay, so I'm all about transparency. So when I did business the first way, it was from a Shunte perspective. I did business as Shunte. And Shunte is very kind-hearted. Shunte will do anything for you. Shunte will not charge you. Okay. But now when I got back into business, and well, that is fine, because you never want to get rid, because your business is still you. But business is business. So now when I've come back, it's like, well, these are my prices. You are or aren't my client. And that is a harder reality for me, I think, than them. And there are a lot of fears with that. And I talk a lot about business confidence. So one thing that I've had to really lean on is confidence in business, because when you disappear and you reappear, being rejected is still an issue. And I've just experienced an overwhelming level of anxiety. And it's like, if I put myself back out there, will they accept me back? And then will they accept me back at this standard that I have raised for myself? because back then they knew, oh, everybody can just be on the bandwagon. I'd put, if I had an event, I'd put you on, hey, do this, hey, I have this opportunity, or I do this for you. But now it's more of, how can this be reciprocal? That's been my new word in every relationship that I have. So that's just kind of where my 10K gap is.
Absolutely. And I appreciate the honesty and the transparency, because that it is the essence of the real talk. And I knew if you're willing to come on here, that's exactly what we're going to get. So I appreciate it.
Right.
So what stood out for me from that whole reflection is, you said, okay, in my previous business, people expected me to show up a certain way, right? Like, I'm the real Shunte, and I don't charge, right? Like, I give my stuff for free. It's about kindness. People come to see me. It's the energy exchange. Like, they just want that from me. Cool. Then you said, in this new business, because I took this hiatus and now I'm coming back, there's this other higher standard that I don't know if other people can reach. That higher standard, define that a little bit more for me.
Okay, so let's just use something relatable. So I produce an event, right? Event, and I've actually had this conversation. And I was like, you know what? In the event, you pay $20 for a ticket, right? But I'm giving you $100 event experience. You're eating on China. You're sitting probably at a $500 decorated table. You're listening to probably about a $3,000 band. So your ticket did not justify the event itself at all. Because I was like, well, I'd rather have people here than charge them maybe like a $75 ticket, which would definitely offset the cost for everything else. So now that ticket is $75. So now, because I spent as much money as I made, I spent. And it wasn't to be flashy. It was because I wanted people to have a good time. I wanted them to have a good experience. And I had a conversation with somebody. She said, well, we're going to be eating out of paper plates now. I said, no, because I will never downgrade the level of experience that you have with me. I'm not going to substitute that. I said, but you will pay for it. Just like when I go anywhere, I'm not asking for a discount. I'm either going to go to Steak 48 or Ruth Chris, or I'm going to go to McDonald's. It's going to be my choice. So just, setting that standard, say, okay, well, you know what? This is a Ruth Chris type of event. Next week will be McDonald's. So if we're charging $100 for a plate, then you're going to get $100 plus more experience. But the next event may be a $5 event, and you're going to get a $5 plus experience. So just being more confident with the price points that I set.
So it sounds to me like you set the standards quite high for the experience that the people are going to get. What you don't have is the same standards for the money that goes into your pocket and supports you.
And the one thing that I will never downgrade is the experience that someone will get. Because I just don't believe in that.
Believe that 110%. Even from the little time that I've known you, I don't think that's a question. My question to you is more, why have that set of standards for the other, but not for yourself?
It was all about confidence. And, that's why I do what I do.
Is it was or is?
Was.
And what about right now? Because it sounds to me like you're running into the same problem.
It is, but now I deal with it. That's the difference. I'm dealing with it. I face it and I say, you know what? Nope. This is what it needs to be. And then I just have to continue moving forward. And those people that are at that level will participate. Those people who want to will participate. That doesn't mean I have to lower my standards for someone else. There is someone on my level. And I feel like in every level of business, there's a client for you. There's a customer base for you. And I just have to be more confident in attracting the customer base that my business needs.
And who sets that confidence?
Me.
Okay. So what's the problem?
That's why we on the show. 10K Norm, come on. And I think it just, that's why I do Let's Talk Life Excel. We talk about life when it gets extra large, because we'll be surprised how certain things from our youth affect us in our adulthood.
So I just want you to pause right there, and I'm going to interject, not because I'm trying to downplay what you say, but simply because certain things pop up, right?
Yeah.
So you're very eloquent and you know all the right things to say, right? Which is great until our strengths become our distortions. And the reason why I say this is, as soon as the question is brought up in the sense of, the choice in front of you, which I believe you also know, is I've set this standard. It's like I'm just afraid to press play. As soon as it's like that's brought to light in its entirety, the brain goes into eloquence somewhere else, right? It goes to speaking about this event. This is what happened. This is how it came about. This was like, the childhood issues that went into this. So I'm curious as to, like, right now, your decisions that you need to make right now to move yourself forward towards your 10K norm. How do you feel in this present moment about what I just reflected back?
Oh, it's true. It's true. And that's the difference between then and now, and the biggest thing about, my journey, me specifically, is, when something comes up, I try to be resilient. I try to attack it. I try to face it. And you were speaking earlier about mirrors. And I think that that's what creates like jealousy, because we see things in other people that we want for ourselves. But instead of taking the time to say, hey, can you help me with that? We just, put that wall up and become jealous. So yeah, I do need a mirror because, I have, and, I'm walking in it. Since I restarted, I say, you know what? I'm going to set the prices that I need to be successful in business and move forward with that. And that's something that I have done since I've started. Now, with that being said, I've also been able to take that and scale up. Like with my radio station there, when we barely got off the ground in October of 2020. So to be a radio host, it was one price to get started, because I just need people to get on board. And then incrementally, we went up in price to what it is now. And I'm comfortable with that. Perfect. But in the past, I would have stayed at that entry rate and then raised it. But if people weren't responding, I would go back to the entry rate. But I've raised it 3 times.
Good. And you definitely should, because I think by your experience, by what you now bring to the table, you bring more value, right? I 100% agree with that. So if you were your own coach and you had to move yourself to the next step towards that 10K norm, what would you advise to yourself?
I would advise to myself to really just continue to be confident and really continue to address those issues.
Okay, so pause right there, right? Because continue to be confident sounds great.
Mentally.
But like, what does that actually mean?
Like, whenever,
right? Like, what are the steps? What's the next step to be confident?
First, you have to identify what area you're lacking confidence in. So when you're feeling insecure about something, pinpoint it. That's Perfect. What I would do.
So what are you feeling insecure about right now?
Well, just really, for one thing that gives me anxiety is just really just showing up again. So like, I have an event coming up and just getting over the anxiety. Last year, I felt like it was time for me to come back to business. So at the start of 2020, I came back in January, well, a little bit before then. And we were producing an event that I usually host every year, which is an annual conference. And I said, okay, you know what? This is the last time I had the conference is where it all ended. So coming back to it produced a severe anxiety. I just, even writing the name down, putting it together, putting the classes together. So whenever I feel like things that make me insecure pop up, I say, okay, well, what is this? Why am I, I stop in that moment. I'm like, okay, well, it's because no one showed up for this particular part and you're afraid that people won't show up for you. Are you afraid that people will reject you? Like, I try to get down to the root of it. Because usually it's a common root, like rejection, fear of not being accepted, you know. So I just kept going. And then 2020 happened and I had to give everybody their money back. So I'm like, oh my God, I got back to it. We sold out. Like I like posting it on social media. It was like, and it was so uncommon. Like I had never experienced that level of anxiety. Just really putting myself out there in front of people saying, hey, I'm not just posting little thoughts of the day anymore. Here's something I need y'all to buy, or here's something I need you to buy into, whatever the case. And to get to that and overcome it and then have to turn around and give it all back. That's where I feel like the saying, you know, 1 step forward, 5 steps back. So then I come back to it again because it won't let me go. And I'm like, okay, well, we have to do it. We did it last year virtually. We pivoted, but it's just something about being in person. And that's something that's also part of me. I love people. So getting people together is kind of like my thing at home, in my business. That's what I love to do. So I'm back at it. And I've noticed some of the same anxiety, but now I have on my mirror, I am proud of you. I write affirmations concerning the summit. Wherever I feel insecure, I write the opposite of that insecurity. So if one day I'm feeling like, okay, well, ticket sales have slowed, an abundance of people will show up. The right people will be there. So my priorities change. Instead of just a lot of people, I just want the right people, the people that need to be there, the people who are destined to be there. So that's just kind of what I do. I pinpoint it and I try to get down to the root of what it is. And then I face it. And then I move forward.
Love it. And I think that's exactly what we all want to do, which is get to the root of it. Because when you get to the root of it, then the rest of it falls apart. Right. So just to make sure that I have this clear now, so you have an event that's coming up.
Yes.
And I mean, let everybody know what's the event and when is it coming up?
Well, it is called the Emerge Forward. So last year it was facing forward because that's where I was in my life in 2019. You know, I felt like I was being drawn back into business. So I was like, well, I got to get in position. You know, we want businesses, but we don't have a plan. We don't even have a concept. So I had to get into position. It was facing forward, the direction I want to go. Now it's emerge. So now I've taken it 1 step further and now it's time to step out. And that's something that I've been doing and practicing all year, because I am very big on practicing what you preach. And like you say, it can sound good, but is it really good? So Emerge Forward, September 25th in Houston, Texas. And it's through my nonprofit, which is Women Empowering Change at wecinc.org.
Love it. Okay. So you have a live event that's happening in Houston at this date. People have bought some tickets already, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And they've bought it at the higher price.
Yes, they have.
Okay, good. Congratulations, right? Like, because that was the transition you were talking about before. So, you know, this whole conversation started with, okay, well, what is it that I identify as my challenge towards my 10K norm? And your initial bit was, well, re-engagement. From what you've shared, I mean, if people are buying your tickets at the higher price, to me, that signifies re-engaging. This whole fear of rejection, this people won't show up, completely understandable given the circumstances and how it went up and then it went down and then you bring it back. Completely understandable. You have a process to transcend that. So to me now, from the outside looking in, it's like, well, some of the pieces aren't exactly connecting together because everything you identify as a problem, when you share the story, it's like I've already overcome it. So it's almost like, what is it that you're not saying out loud that I guess I'm kind of...
Oh yeah, there's more to that. That's just one end.
Yeah.
It's a whole, how long we got? No, I'm playing. And I also want to be able to do this full time. So my next challenge is figuring out, you know, what problem can I be a solution for? You know, out of all the things, and I think that's one of the the downfalls of, and I'll say it, It's going to sound arrogant, but that's one of the downfalls of being able to do a lot of things. When you can write a book, you can update a website, you can run a radio station, you can do this, you can do that. It's just figuring out what avenue can I be the most helpful in, and what would I want to get up doing every day and be able to have that financial freedom to do it.
Okay. And what do people ask you most about?
People come, and that was the thing. People come to me all the time about advice, business advice. And I used to give it away for free all the time. Like I just did it. And I didn't think about charging. It wasn't about charging or anything. So when I say free, I don't regret it. But my mom, she said, well, you know what? Have you ever thought about coaching people? And I'm like, I don't really have time because I also have a full-time job. So I'm like, ooh, I don't know if I can do that. And then, imposter syndrome shows up. Because remember, I'm still battling re-engagement and acceptance at this higher level of myself. I don't know, higher level of understanding or deeper level of understanding. So long story short.
Pause right there as well, right?
Yeah.
Because when I initially reflected that back to you, I was like, you started with re-engagement, and then you're running this event, you're running it at the higher price point. People are still buying. I'm not really buying the re-engagement story. So I'm curious in your head and how you feel, right? I'm still working on re-engagement. Is that an accurate statement, or would you refine it differently?
No, it's still accurate, because I had to learn how to use social media. Because when I did this a long time ago, social media wasn't, we were using it, but it wasn't like we're using it now. I had a fan page back then, and if I had 1,000 fans, I post one thing, 900 of those fans would see it. Now, if I post something and I have 1,000 fans, 2 people will see it. 5 people. So I had to re-engage and just kind of learn, how do I use social media appropriately? How do I use it effectively? So re-engagement has been quite a struggle. And then with re-engagement and transparency, that's where the whole, will I still be accepted, with my new mindset, with the things that I've learned. And I say this and trust me, y'all, I go home and I rename it, because what may feel like a problem for me may not be a problem for someone else. They may not see it that way, but it feels that way for me. Just kind of learning all of these new tools to promote re-engagement. Then you have a newsletter. Okay, you start telling people, hey, this is what we're doing now. So you see numbers go down. People are unsubscribing because they're like, I didn't sign up for this. I signed up for Total Be the Lazy Man. Now you got Women Empower and Change. Now you got a radio station. I don't want to know about that. So, you see this trend go down, and you have to remember that people come and people go.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're actually just filtering the people that are now resonating with your new message, right? And I think that's certainly, with any new start, I mean, myself included, kind of in that same range, because my background was in fitness before. I do nothing with fitness now, so I totally understand that. I guess what I'm coming back to then is this bit of priorities, right? The long-term game is always going to be the social media, the how I show up, how frequently I show up, and that has its time and place, and it's certainly important, right? But in terms of, I'm looking to normalize my level of income now based off of the skills that I have, you do have a network of people in front of you. Okay, what's stopping you from going to that network and being like, hey, from what I remember with you, you were doing X, Y, Z. I have skills A, B, and C. I can help you collapse the time to, do what you need to do. Do you want to work together?
And you know what? That's what I've been doing now. So now when I network, I'm listening, I'm learning what that person is doing. And then I'm also trying to figure out, well, how can I be a solution to help you bridge that gap? And we talked about the time collapse in time on our last talk. So, I think that that's something that I'm doing more now, and, really trying to put out there, Back then it was more of the events and helping other people, right? We gave a lot away to causes. Our cause was breast cancer awareness. So a lot of people were plugged into me because of the cause. So now I'm promoting me. It's different, and we can't say it's not. It's like, okay, well, I love to save a person's life, but now you're talking about you and paying you for this. And so, I've just held fast at, what I feel my new level of experience and knowledge is worth. I have assigned my value, and I'm just navigating the waters of potential clients, and how I can continue to help other professionals, because that's what I want to do. I want to keep teaching, but I just want to teach people in business.
Beautiful. And I think what's coming out for me is because you have such a kind heart, and so much of your business past has been about, give, very little receive. And I think you've made the shifts, right? From the affirmations to, going through the resistance of the anxiety about the new pricing for the event. I think you've actually, like you said, have healed the work that comes from that. What I always work through when I have clients that are in similar, because I mean, heart-centered entrepreneurs by default are going to be very kind people, very much about the other. And therefore, we often neglect to shine that same light on ourselves. So one turnaround that I think would be useful for you here is when you're now going out and pitching all of the skills you have towards helping somebody, it's now becoming less about helping the individual with like the individual pieces per se. You are now getting paid to solve a problem for that person, right? So if you want to like shift it away from like, oh, am I worthy? I feel anxious? Like, should I charge this? Can I charge this much? Right? If you were to shift that perspective towards the other and being like, how much is this problem worth it for this individual to solve? That is what you need to get paid. It's almost irrelevant. Like I could say my program's $1 billion, but nobody's going to pay $1 billion, right? For this level of service. Like there's a market norm and there's a social norm. And I think you're confusing the social norm of like, I need to be good for people, so I need to like show up and be kind and be essentially free. You are now transitioning to the business norm, which is I'm going to do all those things that make me great. That's going to make the relationship better. And that's what's going to make me over deliver. But you are paying me to solve this problem that you're experiencing in your life. So how does all of that land for you?
I like that. And I feel like that's kind of the model that I've just been coaching myself on. And my dad used to always tell me, I say the same thing, but you won't receive it unless somebody else said it. So I think it's, I really appreciate that, perspective, because, you do have to get to that point where you can say, all right, well, this is how I did business and this is how I want to do business. And that's exactly what I want to do. I want to look at it from the business, like this is your problem. I'm the solution. So together, right, we can do this and be effective. When I was looking at it from a whole me perspective, me, it all falls on me. No, this is someone else's problem and they're outsourcing you. So if they're coming to you, because this is what I tell people, if they coming to you, then they do value what you have to offer. But I think my gap was me also valuing what I had to offer and just getting over that mentality, that mindset of insecurity, things from my own personal, background, just being like, no, just stop the noise. And I love that you said that. And that's something that I'm going to take. And because I do want to normalize a 10K month, because I want to be able to walk in and retire on good terms. And then really be able to teach. My whole goal is to teach outside of the classroom.
100%. And I was like, as you were speaking, I was like, amen, like that's exactly it. Um, because here's the thing, right? And like, this is going back to like the whole heart-centered entrepreneur and the dichotomies that we find ourselves in. Sometimes we get so worked up and focused on the inner work, on the personal development side of things. I have to heal this. I have to get to the root. Oh, if it's not happening, I must not have like personal developed enough, you know? At some point, you heal enough that if you were to accept that, you can actually move forward. And the flip side of it is like, how many rich people do you know that have never done personal development work, right? So the worth and the earning are actually two separate things, right? We're all inherently worthy of everything that we want, but the earning of it takes, you know, the motions, the actions, the cumulative focus of moving towards whatever it is that is our goal. And I think your example is actually perfect because all of the inner work, right? That's kind of why I asked all those questions at the beginning, just to filter out, is there any of those aspects there? I was like, it doesn't seem to be coming out, right? But now it's the transition of, okay, I've done the inner work. I can use that same skill set to now overcome the resistance to ask for the sale, right? And just to kind of sum it up with regards to your points that you mentioned, it's like people will come towards you because of who you are, but they'll pay you to solve the problem, right? So it's like they're two completely different things, which is also why like sometimes we'll pay assholes to solve problems, right? It doesn't necessarily, one isn't necessarily like connected to the other, but when it is, I think it's great. I think that's how you want to do business. That's who you want to work with, right? But I'm just kind of illustrating it for the contrast. So who you are, I think is not a question here in the fact that people love you, that they'll just gravitate towards you, but the paying, people are going to pay you to the extent that you can solve their problems. And now I think where it shifts back to you is, I have to own that I have a lot of knowledge in my head that I was just used to giving out for free, that if I package it, I will actually serve the other better. Why? Because now they have skin in the game to actually implement all of that stuff versus, you know, just kind of like, hey, like, how do I do this? Okay, cool. And they just go and do the exact opposite thing. Right. So how does all of that land for you?
It does. It lends great. And you know, I've been dealing with imposter syndrome like heavy. And just like it's so you know, I tell people all the time, no matter how many platforms you see people speak on, we all have our thing. You know, it's always something that we have to overcome. And my thing is just, you know, just just accepting, like you say, just accept that I know enough to help you. You know, like if you come to me, then I got you. You know, you wouldn't be coming to me if you didn't think I could. So just really, I think for me at this point, I've just been really going through the process of accepting my own skill and my own level of contribution. You know, I'm thinking, I've had so many thoughts, and we're being transparent. It's like, well, how can you help somebody if you still have a full-time job? And I'm like, that's irrelevant. Because, what if I help you and you blow up, and then that's good because that was your problem and I helped you with it. This has nothing to do with me and my problem. So, I just really will accept that, because that's kind of where, that's exactly, not kind of, but exactly where I am. Like you said, just accepting the fact that, I do have the skills to be of service and support. Now, 10K Norm, how do you go about packaging that?
Well, that is a longer conversation, which I wouldn't actually mind going. If you want to come back for a second episode, I'm more than happy to dive into that. But it ultimately comes down to, what problem are you going to solve? Like, if I had to summarize it in like one, it's like, if you solve a big enough problem that you can charge 10K for, you only have to sell one of those a month.
Yeah.
Right. So it now then becomes down to more of the like mechanics of, what is it that you do? Who do you do it for? And are those people in a position to actually charge what you need them to charge to create your own 10K norm? So I would say that's kind of the short version of your answer. So So does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes plenty of sense.
Okay.
I don't
So,
I don't think I'm solving 10K problems yet. So
well, that's okay. Solve 2K problems 5 times and, you know, we'll be there as well, right? Like it's not necessarily.
I love the breakdown that you gave the last time. So yeah, that's kind of, I think that's more of my mindset, is how can I solve those problems repeatedly? And then how can I solve problems without me as a person?
So what do you mean by
Because
that
I only
last one?
have so much time. So
Right.
what kind of service can I provide that's like automated or, already pre-packaged to where all you have to do is just purchase and use?
Right. So now this is, again, a deeper question because it always depends, right? Can I have something that's automated with the audience that I currently have? I don't know, maybe. Like we have to test that out. I'm always on the side of like prove your thing with things that don't scale first. You'll understand the problem so deeply enough, the commonalities amongst it, that then you can package it into something that you can then begin to scale. But the advantage that you have now versus like a more established business or a business that is like at 10K growing like to 25K or whatever, is you have the advantage of intimacy. Like people will have a deeper level of access to you, and that's fine because in addition to getting paid maybe even less than it might be worth in like the long term for the same information that you house, you're also gathering data on what can become that ultimate thing, right? So those are now more specifics of like it depends like if you're going to help somebody write a book who's never written a book before, it might be, you know, less money than if you help somebody blow up a podcast who already has a good pod, like you help them go from good to great, right? Because sometimes we can take our same skill set, and if we just change the individual that we do that skill to, also our fee changes, right? So for example, let's just say, because my background was in fitness, like I could do, you know, personal training or nutrition for, you know, the everyday, you know, family or whatever, or the everyday mom or dad, or I can do it the exact same thing for a CEO. Like I'll get paid a lot more for doing it for a CEO of a big company. Some things in delivery are likely to change. That's fine, but it's just that is also going to determine the price that we can ultimately charge. So that's kind of a short summary answer of those. So I just want to know, because you do have a hard stop. So how does that land for you as we wrap up?
That does, I mean, that's like right on point. I'm really, like grateful for the conversation. I mean, you like dug all into me, got all in my emotional space. But I feel like that is the best way to really come out with some answers and some resolve. I think there's a lot of frustrated professionals out there because they have not met their moment of resolution. Just coming to an answer with something, because I think that's the biggest pit, is when you don't know the next move. And
Correct.
that's just kind of where I am with the whole rebuilding. It's like, okay, I can see the income in everything that I'm doing. So I have 3 businesses. I can see the income. So it's really a matter of digging it out. Like, well, how does that look? Is that a package? Is it a service? Is it something, that they're buying into? Is it coaching? Is it events? So there is potential in everything that I'm doing. It's just a matter of pinpointing it and then presenting it.
And one last thing that I would just reflect back to that is I don't know is a choice to get stuck in quicksand. And what I mean by that is any of those options, if you just say, I'm going to pick one and do it for a month, you would know, you would test it, and reality would tell you what the results are, right? So the ultimate thing to kind of sum this up is everything you've just mentioned could be your thing, but focusing on getting the right thing before you even start is only going to keep you in that I don't know quicksand, right? So it's almost better make a quote unquote stupid imperfect choice, see the results. Now you have actual like real world factual reality data and reality feedback that then you can use to make a better choice. But this loop of I got to get it right, is it this, is it that, is it this package, is it a membership, is it a webinar, is it coaching, is it group coaching, You could go down that rabbit hole for years and stay exactly where you are. And every single time the question will be relevant. But the ultimate piece is it's a choice. Make the choice, know that you have more than enough experience to bounce back from the result, and then transition forward.
That's exactly what I'm going to do. So I'm going to make that a plan. And I think I've just been frustrating myself. So I'm going to look at it like the radio station is great. You know, that is doing fine. It works for itself. So I'm very proud of that baby. And you know, it's just, I guess, really the only one I'm really, you know, going down the rabbit hole, because I haven't made a choice, let's be honest, and take accountability, is my own personal website, my own personal company. So it's so funny that it all goes back to that whole acceptance thing. The ones that have nothing to do with me are fine. It's the one that does that I'm struggling with. So at the end of the day, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to look at, you know, my coaching service and just make a plan. Like, I have a plan up there, but I'm just going to put it out there and start collecting some data.
Love it. And I would just challenge you one step further, because I just also happens every time like this kind of choice is presented, our mind naturally through resistance gravitates towards the good sounding but delaying option. I'll work on my website. I'll make a plan. You can do both of those things and still not move forward on actually getting paid. So I would invite you to skip those and just ask somebody for money.
Okay, wait a minute. How I do that? We're not wrapping up until you tell me the secret to that one now. Hold on, y'all. I don't know if y'all got more time out there.
From what I know from you, right? Like what I know from you, like you have a successful radio show, you know how to do events, you know how to speak, you know how to blow these things up. Okay. I'm sure there's somebody in your network that would like to be able to get to the level you're at, as far as like the, you know, podcasting or radio or being out there a bit, right? Identify those few individuals, send them a voice note, send them a video, and be like, hey, I was just thinking about you, saw that you're working on your show. Here's XYZ thing that I think can improve right now. If you want to go down that rabbit hole more, like, let's set up a time to chat. Then when you chat, you dive deeper into their problems. Like, yeah, cool, I can solve those for you in 3 months. It's going to cost X amount.
And that's what I'm going to do. And I, you know, you'll be proud of me because I have done it. And beautiful. I think I'm going to I think for me, the issue is not resting on the fact that I have done it, but to continue to do it.
Yes.
And to continue to navigate the no's or the not right nows, and, you know, continue to push forward, not let those things I think that's what I've been doing. I've been letting the hesitations and the no's kind of slow me down and make me doubt, you know, what I can provide and offer.
100%. If you want like reading material on this, there's a book called Go for No. The basic premise of it is that the path to yes is through a whole bunch of no's. So the more no's you collect, the more yeses you will subsequently collect as well. So if you make the goal, not the yes, but the no, like I got 3 no's and I kind of gave up, make the goal, I'm going to get 5 no's every week. I can guarantee you're going to start getting a bunch of yeses.
And that is so funny with alignment, because just on a show, and that's exactly what we were talking about, navigating the no's. So I'm going to have to take my own advice and really just kind of put the pressure to keep going and take the pressure off, you know, put the pressure in the right place, reassign my pressure. I think that's what I've been doing. I've been putting pressure on, you know, my confidence when I need to put pressure on, you know, just kind of keep my movement, so to say.
Exactly. And what better way to keep you stuck than I need more confidence, whereas the path to confidence is through competence, which you can get when you actually take the steps. Again, another way that resistance works. So I'm going to cut it off right there because I think we just keep going. And I know you have a hard stop. I appreciate you for going over. Just to finish it off, how can people find out more about you, your events, all of the quality coaching you're going to be providing very soon? Break it down for us.
Okay, well, you can follow me on Facebook at Shunte Gamble, and that's Shunte with no A. Shunte Gamble at Blueprint. So Shunte Gamble Blueprint on Facebook, or Shunte_Gamble on Instagram. The event is September 25th in Houston, Texas. It is our Emerge Forward Summit. Really excited. It's going to be at the North Houston Sheraton Hotel. There are discounts available. So if you want to make it a weekend getaway, it is a whole day of empowerment. And at the end, we're going to cap it off with the Pod Social, where I'll be doing a live podcast. There'll be dancing, VIP only raffles. So it's very fun. So if you've heard me and you know my transparency and the humor that I like to interject, then you know that each workshop will be fun, engaging, and empowering. So y'all follow me, Shunte Gamble. You can Google me too.
Awesome. Love it. That's it for today's show. We'll see everybody on the next one.